By the time he turned 20, Inigo Montoya of Arabella, Spain, had spent his last 8 years wandering the world. He had not yet begun the hunt for the six-fingered man who had killed his beloved father, Domingo. He was not ready and would not be until the great swordmaker Yesti pronounced him so. Yesti, his father's dearest friend, would never send him out if there were flaws. Flaws would not only bring death, but, far worse, humiliation. Inigo knew one thing and that only. When he finally found his tormentor, when he was at last able to face him and say, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die," there could be no question in his mind of defeat. The six-fingered man was a master, and so, preparing for such a master, Inigo had wandered the world, getting stronger as he grew, learning from whoever could teach him mysteries that needed solving. Lately he had begun to specialize. His talents were past phenomenal, but still not good enough to get the blessing of Yesti. He had recently been to Iceland to spend months with Ardnok, the great frozen terrain expert. Inigo had already mastered fighting from below and from above, fighting from trees, from rocks, in rapids. But what if the six-fingered man was from the far north, and they battled on frost or freshly watered ice? And what if Inigo, helpless and slipping, lost his balance, lost the battle, lost everything? After Iceland, he spent half a year on the equator, studying with Atumba, the master of heat, because what if the six-fingered man came from a steaming country, and what if they battled in the heat of the hottest day, temperature at 150, and what if the grip of his sword went wet for a moment in his hand? Now, having just turned 20, he was in Italy to see Piccoli, the tiny ancient, the acknowledged king of the mind. Piccoli was from the most famous line of great Italian teachers. Another branch was centered in Venice, and taught singing to every famous Italian tenor whose name ends in a vowel. Inigo knew he would not be able to think when his death battle came. His mind had to be a spring day, and his movements had to come on their own. His spins and twists and thrusts all had to leap unbidden. Piccoli lived in a small stone house, in the employ of Count Cardinale, the strange and secret man who controlled most of the country. Piccoli had heard of Inigo because although Yesti was the greatest and most famous maker of swords, there were rumors that when he was confronted with a task that was too much even for him, he would go to the town of Arabella, high in the hills above Toledo, to the hovel of one Domingo Montoya, a widower who lived with a young son. It was there that the six-fingered sword had been forged. Could it truly be the wonder of his world? Piccoli had heard of it for a decade, yearned to see it dance before he died. The greatest weapon since Excalibur, and where was it now? Gone with the child Montoya from the house of Yesti, and where was that child? Piccoli had spent his entire long life training his mind, so that he had the ability to sit for a day in the middle of a mad battle and know nothing of the screams and slaughter going on around him. When he was in his mind, he was as if dead, and every morning at dawn he would go into his mind and stay there till noon. No power could disturb him. He had gone into his mind at dawn one day, there to stay till the sun was highest, but on this one morning, at 8 o'clock, a strangeness. He was in his mind as he always was at 6 and at 7, at 7:30 and at 8:15, and 10 till 5 and 4 and 3. And then Piccoli was pierced by something so dazzling, even he had to open his eyes. To see a young man approaching, tall, blade-thin, muscular, spring-legged, who was handsome enough, but would have been more than that, save for the 2 scars that paralleled his cheeks, who held such glory in his hands. The sun was dancing there. And Piccoli could not breathe as the young man approached. "I want to see Mr. Piccoli, please." "I wish to see your sword." Piccoli trembled as he took it in his tiny hands. "What could you possibly want from me?" He could not take his eyes off the weapon. "You have the world here." Inigo told him. "You want me to teach you to control your mind?" Piccoli asked. Inigo nodded. "I have come very far." "A waste, I fear. You are young. The young have not the patience. They are stupid. They think their bodies will save them." "Let me learn." "Pointless. Go wage your battle without me." "I beg you." Piccoli sighed. "All right. Let me show you how stupid you are. Answer my queries. What on all the earth do you want more than anything? Why, to kill the six-fingered man, of course. And with that, Piccoli started screaming. Wrong, wrong, listen, see what I say. His voice grew soft and seductive. The six-fingered man has his sword in his hand. He thrusts. See what I say, Montoya. Watch the sword. He has thrust the sword toward your father. Now the sword is entering your father's heart. Domingo's heart is shredded, and you are 10 and standing there. You are helpless. Do you remember that moment? I command you, remember that moment. Inigo could not stop his sudden tears. Now you are watching him fall. Look at him. Watch Domingo die. Inigo began sobbing out of all control. Tell me what you feel. Inigo was barely able to speak the word. Pain. Yes, right, of course. Pain. Killing pain. That's what you should want more than anything. An end to your pain. Yes. That pain is with you, every moment, every day. Yes. If you think of ending your pain, you will kill the six-fingered man. But if you only think revenge, he will kill you, because he has already taken the thing on earth you treasured most, and he will know that. And when you battle, he will say things. He will taunt you. He will talk about your pathetic father, and he will laugh at your love for a failure like Domingo. And you will scream in rage, and your revenge will take control, and you will attack blindly, and then he will cut you to pieces. Inigo saw it all, and it was true. He saw himself charging and heard himself screaming, and then he felt the six-fingered man's sword as it entered his body, drove through his heart. Please, do not let me lose to him, he finally managed to say. Piccoli looked at the shattered young man before him. He gently returned the six-fingered sword. Go, dry your tears, Montoya, he said at last. We start your training in the morning. It was savage work. Inigo had never imagined it would be anything less, but Piccoli was merciless beyond human reckoning. For 8 years, Inigo had sprinted 2 hours each day to make his legs muscular and strong. Now, with Piccoli, he could not sprint at all. For 8 years, he had squeezed apple-sized rocks 2 hours a day so his wrists might deliver the death blow from any and all positions. Now, rock squeezing was banned. For 8 years, he had never skipped and dodged less than 2 hours a day so his legs would be quick. Now, no skipping, no dodging. Inigo's body, so lash-strong, so whip-it-quick, the body he had shaped for lethal combat, the body that was the envy of most men. That body, Piccoli hated it. Your body is your enemy while you are with me, Piccoli explained. We must weaken it for now. It is the only way you can grow your mind. As long as you think you can fight your way out of trouble, you will never be able to fight your way out of trouble. For 8 years, Inigo had gotten by on 4 hours sleep. Now, that was all he did. Sleep, doze, rest, snooze. He catnapped under orders. Siesta'd constantly. It seemed to him he was grabbing 40 winks every time 80 winks had gone by. And while resting, he had to think about his mind. Weeks passed. He was sleeping 12 hours a day at first, then 15. Piccoli's goal was a fat 20, and Inigo knew the torture would never stop until his goal was reached. He did nothing but lie there and think about this mind. His only job was to think about his mind, get acquainted with it, learn its ways. His sole exercise was 15 minutes each day while the sun went down. Piccoli would send him outside, the sword in hand, and nod, just once, and Inigo would flash in the dying light, the sword alive, and his body would leap and duck, and the shadows moved like ghosts. Piccoli was very old, but once he had seen Bastia, and this was Bastia again, alive again on earth. One more nod from the tiny ancient head, and back to rest, to bed, to lie there and think about his mind. And it went that way until the day Piccoli had to go to the village for provisions. Inigo was alone in the stone house, and then there were soft footsteps approaching, and a soft voice inquiring for the owner, and then Inigo was alone no longer. He looked toward the figure framed in the doorway, stood, and spoke these most remarkable and unexpected words. I cannot marry you. She looked at him. Have we met, sire? In my dreams. And we decided not to marry? What strange dreams from such a young fellow. No younger than you. You work for Piccoli? Inigo shook his head. Mostly I sleep for Piccoli. Come closer. I have no choice. You work in the castle? I have lived there all my life. My mother, too. Inigo Montoya, of Spain. You? He waited for her name. He knew it would be a wondrous name, a name he would remember forever. Julieta, sire. Do you think me strange, Julieta? I'd be pretty dopey if I didn't, Julieta said, before adding, sire. Do you feel your heart at this moment? I feel mine. I'd be pretty dopey if I didn't, Julieta said. Her black eyes studied his face so closely before she said, I think you better tell me of your dreams. Inigo began. He told of the slaughter and his scars, and how, when he had healed, he had begun his quest, and how, wandering through the world, town to city to village, alone, always that, sometimes he made up companions, since there were none really for company. And when he was perhaps 13, there was a someone always waiting for him at the end of the day. As he grew up and older, she grew older too, the girl, and she would be there, always there, and they would eat scraps together for dinner and sleep in haylofts in each other's arms, and her black eyes were so kind when they looked at him. As your eyes are kind now, as you look at me. And her black hair tumbled down as I can see yours now, tumbling down. And you have kept me blessed company all these years, Julieta, and I love you, and I will forever, but I cannot, and I hope you understand, because my quest comes first, above all else, even with what I see in your eyes. I cannot marry you. She was so obviously touched. Inigo knew that. Inigo saw that he had moved her deeply. He waited for her reply. Finally, Julieta said, Do you tell that story often? I'll bet the village girls go nuts over you. She turned toward the door, then. Go try it on them, and she was gone. The next morning, before he went into his mind, she was back. Let me get this straight, Inigo. We had scraps for dinner? I'm in your fantasy, and the best you can come up with is scraps? She turned toward the door then. You have no chance of winning my heart. Inigo went back into his mind. The next noon, she poked him awake. Let me get this straight, Inigo. We slept in haylofts? You couldn't even come up with a clean room at an inn? Do you know how scratchy haylofts are? She turned toward the door then. You have less chance of winning my heart today than you had yesterday. Inigo went back into his mind. The next dusk, she stood in the doorway. It was just before his 15 minutes of movement, and she said, How do I know you're going to find this six-fingered man? And how do I know you can beat him? What if I took some kind of weird pity on you and waited, and then he won? That is my nightmare. That is why I study. She pointed at his sword. Are you any good with that thing? Inigo went outside and danced with the six-fingered sword in the dying light. He tried hard to be particularly dazzling and ended with a special flourish taught him years before by Macpherson in Scotland. It involved a spin and a sword toss and ended with a bow. Impressive stuff, Inigo. I admit it, she said when he was done. But what happens after you find this guy and run him through? How are you going to earn a living? Doing stunts like that? What do you expect me to do, play the tambourine and gather the crowd? You have so little chance of winning my heart. There is no point to our ever seeing each other again. Goodbye. Watching her leave there was no question. Inigo's heart was aching. She did not return till the night of the ball. Inigo could not help but hear the music pouring out of the castle down through the night. Musicians had been practicing for days. Suddenly, Julieta was there, beckoning. It's so beautiful, she whispered. I thought you might want to see. I can sneak you in, but you must do exactly what I say. It will go badly if we are found out. They raced through the long shadows, paused only briefly outside the kitchen. Then she nodded, and they were inside, and she pointed left to show that was their way. Then right. Then he followed till the ballroom itself stood before them. It was a sight beyond his conceiving. A room of such size, such elegance, with flowers to fill a forest, and musicians playing softly. Inigo stared, and kept staring, until he heard a gasp, and Julieta whispered, "Oh no, the Count is here. I must go, get behind the door." Inigo slipped behind the door, wondering how horrible the punishment was for sneaking into a castle, for peering in rooms only the mighty should behold. He closed his eyes and made a silent prayer that the Count would never see him. He opened his eyes to nightmare. The Count was staring at him, an old, old man, dressed in such magnificence, with a look of such disdain, and a voice of shattering power. "You," he began, his rage already building, "are a thief." "I have never stolen," Inigo started to say. "Who are you?" Inigo could not get the words out. Montoya? Inigo Montoya of Arabella, Spain." "A Spaniard! In my house! I shall have to fumigate." And then the Count came close. "How did you get in here?" "Someone brought me, but I will never reveal her name. Punish me, do anything you will with me, but her name will always be a secret from you." Then he gasped as Julieta stood in a distant doorway. He gestured for her to run, but the Count's turn was too fast, and he saw. "Do nothing to her," Inigo cried out. "She has lived here all her life, as did her mother before her." "Her mother was my wife," the Count roared, loudest of all. "You pathetic excuse for a money-grabbing fool, you disgrace to the face of the world." And with a shriek of disgust, he turned and was gone. Julieta was beside Inigo then, so excited. "Daddy likes you," she said. That's fun. I really like the way he turns her down, or like it's turning down but flirting at the same time. He's like, he looks at her and he's like, "I can't marry you." And she's like, "What?" I don't know. I don't think that would go over well in real life. It's not really negging, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it works in a book, but I don't think it would play out the same way in with real people. But yeah, I don't think I'm not gonna say that I was surprised that she was like pretending to be a like a servant, and that she's actually the Count's daughter. You kind of wish it would, though, right? Yeah, like there's certain things. I think that's part of, but it's so romantic. Yeah, I think that's part of the appeal of like fantasy novels, is like there are things that work in a book that you just can't do or say in real life, and you know, it's what makes books entertaining to read, because it's like, I wish that could work out in real life that way. But yeah, I do like how it's written, where he's like, you've haunted my dreams my entire life, even though I've never seen you before. I feel like that would maybe the negative, the like, you can't marry me, or I can't marry you, or whatever he said, that part I think doesn't work in real life. But the whole thing about like it's a little over dramatic, which could turn people off. So I know why people don't say it this way, but like to say that I've dreamed about you even though I've never seen you before does feel like intriguing enough to want to know more. "I've dreamed thee too long, never seen thee nor touched thee, but known thee with all of my heart." Who is that? Stultus. I'm tempted to say Shakespeare, but it doesn't quite feel like the right cadence. Yeah, okay. Man of La Mancha. Interesting. I haven't read that one. Maybe we could talk about I've got so many books. Got so many books that I haven't read. Eventually tonight, hopefully, we'll get to talking about what I read next. I do like the whole like romance slash adventure slash like action. I like that Princess Bride hits all of it, but we're in the middle of something. We'll talk about that at the end. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.